what training programs does your company offer to interns or full-time employees?
As I mentioned before, when I started my career at NFA, I was the compliance examiner from the gate. I went through 3 weeks of training. So 3 weeks of training on the industry and also on the regulations, because our job as regulators is twofold. You have to understand the inner workings of the industry and also to be able to enforce the regulations. And so the training was twofold. They took us basic: what is a derivative, what's the future, what's an option, as if you know nothing. And so starting there and then being able to build on that. So subsequent to that, you have to take and pass the Series 3 exam, because we require associated persons that work at our member firms to take that exam. So we also, as examiners, have to go through that training and pass that exam. Within a year of being hired, you take the Certified Fraud Examiner training, which is a certification that allows you it expands your knowledge of fraud examinations, but as also you take continuing education. So we're constantly being trained. So aside from that initial training that you're required to do, we have periodic trainings from our Office of Professional Development. And it ranges from industry specific training, such as your finance, to just general professional development training. So there's training in ethics, there's training in leading people. And so training, I think, is one of the tools that NFA uses to help its employees succeed. And I've personally benefited a lot from that. And interns also go through the same process so that they're able to function and be able to ultimately land, an offer with the NFA.
When I think back to last year, our interns come in June, and we had the pandemic happen in March. And so usually what happens is our first week of training for the interns, they have online courses, we do some in-person conversations, but most of the training happens on the job. You go to meetings with leaders, you talk to colleagues, so you learn a lot just through exposure and listening and watching. And so we are really trying to think, how do we pivot, given that literally, I went into the office for the first time yesterday after a year and 6 months. And so we're really thinking about, we will probably never go back to everyone being in the office 5 days a week. And so we're really thinking about, how do we better do training and replace some of that in-person, face-to-face, when we're not going to have as much time. So it's a really interesting time. I think a lot of companies, I've spoken to colleagues and friends at different companies, and everyone's sort of thinking about their training and how they change it to be more virtual and versatile in a environment that's no longer as in-person as it was a year ago.
All of our entry-level roles are considered training programs. And the reason for that is that we do provide extensive foundational training. So there's 4 roles that I do want to highlight briefly. We have our financial product analytics and sales role. So in that role, you'll be assisting clients with any questions they have regarding the financial asset classes, leveraging the Bloomberg terminal as your resource. So similar to Kayan, in that training, it teaches you the basics about finance, right? What's the stock? What's the bond? Options. You do not need to be a finance major to be eligible for this role. And that role, you'll be trained in for about 3 months. So you'll be in a classroom for a month, and then you'll be on the analytics desk assisting clients, and then back in the classroom again. We want to make sure that you're fully adept to assist clients when you're ready to go live. The second role is our global data analyst role. So that role, you'll be extracting data from various sources to put into the Bloomberg terminal, right? So anything having to do with any of the asset classes, you do require a programming language for that. And we like to think of that role as the intersection between data, finance, and technology. That training is about 2 weeks long. Our third role is the Bloomberg customer support role. So if anyone calls into Bloomberg, our main line, you're going to get a customer support rep, and their job is to answer any questions about Bloomberg. It could be about the company, it could be about the terminal, it could be about any IT issues that they have. And that training is about 8 weeks long. The reason why it's 2 months is because you're, as a customer support rep, you're expected to be the subject matter expert of everything Bloomberg. And the last role is our client financial services role, which I like to think of it as our accounting arm, but also that customer service lens as well. So you'll be responsible for answering questions about our clients' Bloomberg subscription. So for example, if someone has a question about their subscription, or maybe there's a mistake on that, our client financial services reps are the ones that are the main point of contact for that. They do have a book of business of clients that they're specifically aligned to. So that training specifically is about 2 weeks before you start to interact with clients. And then also to Kayan's point, we do have foundational training, but you're always learning at Bloomberg, right? So there's always ways to continue to upskill yourself as you progress in your career here.
Make sure to check out the My Career tab on the BC Navigator app, where you can track your career progress based on the amount of credits you've earned, stay updated on upcoming events from the Magner Center, and watch our videos for insight and advice on your career field.